Hi there. Happy New Year. Welcome back to 2026. Yeah, it's been quite a winter so far. I hope everybody's well and are not too affected by the snow and floods, etc., that we've been having. I just wanted to hop on and speak to you about the new greening rules that are coming into play or came into play on the 1st January. You may or may not be aware that the greening element of your basic payment is having a review of the requirements for how you get that payment. So the first thing is we'll speak about the permanent grassland only holdings, which the majority of our clients are. So permanent grassland is any grass that's been in situ for more than 5 years. So that's maybe been temporary grass before, but it's been there for more than 5 years. um, you need to be aware of certain things that need to be done for it. So, permanent grassland, you need to know if your grassland is designated in an environmentally sensitive grazing area, or is it unimproved semi-natural? Um, you can find this out by logging on to the rural payments and having a look on the mapping portal. There are different layers that you can add onto the mapping portal, and it will show you there. If your permanent grassland is designated, for example, triple SI, SAC, or SPA, which you should be aware of, you should always speak to Nature Scot before doing any cultivation or any works on it. If you cultivate any permanent grassland and it doesn't go back into grass, then it reverts to arable or can be temporary grass for 5 years. The rule changes for enhanced greening for this are that you are no longer required to complete and retain an annual nitrogen fertilizer and lime plan for fields of permanent grassland or open grazed woodland. So that's the difference, is you don't need to keep the lime and fertilizer plan anymore. For temporary grassland, that needs to go on your basic payment form. And that is any grass that's under 5 years old. So that will fall under your arable land. Um, your some of your grassland could be needed to be used as EFA margin if your area is greater than a certain percentage. So if your total area of your holding is 125 hectares and you've got 100 hectares of arable, your EFA area is 5%, which is 5 hectares. Um, if all your 5 hectares are sited on permanent grass, then that 5 hectares now becomes arable and gives you a new total arable area. So you end up with 105 hectares of arable area. So you now need 5.25 hectares of EFA for your greening points. So next we are looking at the arable side of things. So if you're arable only, you need to be speaking about EFA areas, or if you've got the mix, which we've spoken about, it'll depend on what your mix of arable and permanent grass is, depending on your areas. So if in doubt, have a look online and see, but should be fairly straightforward. So EFA rules have changed this year. And we're just going to run through what these are. That this is all online on rural payments and is there for you to go and read. This is just an introduction to it. If you want to discuss this further, we can make an appointment to have a chat. That's not a problem. So an EFA or ecological focus area is an area of land upon which you carry out agricultural practices that are beneficial for the climate and environment. The main aim is to mitigate climate change and improve biodiversity. So there are 11 different options available. These can be used individually or in a combination. It's up to yourself. And these range from fallow land, margins in field, catch crops, green cover, nitrogen fixing crops like peas, etc., hedgerows, agroforestry, low input grassland, herb and legume-rich pastures, alternative EFA agroforestry practices, or unharvested crop. If the EFA requirements apply to you, and the majority of our clients don't, but there are some that it will, it means that at least 5% of your calculated arable area must be managed under one or more types of the EFA that we spoke about. You can overclaim and you can manage more than the 5%. You won't get penalised. That's not a problem. It's often better to over manage than under manage. We're often asked, I'm organic, does it affect me? If all of your land is certified as organic, you're compliant with EFA requirements. That is if every hectare of your land is certified organic. If you have more than 15 hectares of non-organic arable land, then you are needing to abide by the EFA rules. So it's more than 15 hectares of non-organic arable land in an organic holding that means that you have to put in EFA areas. So what counts as arable land? So anything that's used to grow arable crops, anything that is fallow, anything that has temporary grass, anything that's got leguminous or herbaceous crops is classed as arable land. If like we said before, if you're using some of your permanent grass for EFA, that is classed as arable. So again, going back to the calculation that we had before, you have 125 hectare of holding, you have 100 hectare of arable land, you're required to keep 5% for EFA, which is 5 hectares. If that 5 hectares is put on permanent grassland, then it would then become arable. So then you need to have 5.25%, 5.25 hectares because you've added that onto the area. When calculating your arable area, you should include any area that is fallow, any land that is in the EFA margin, and any land that is currently in an agri-environmental scheme that does not allow production, which was formerly arable. For example, beetle banks, grass margins, water margins, where grazing is excluded. So it'll depend on each individual holding. So there's different contributions for each EFA commitment. So your fallow area in hectares is 1 unit per hectare. So you're 1 for 1. Your margins in fields, so that are on or adjacent to or within 5 meters of arable land, are 1.5. So if you needed say 10 hectares, you could get away with putting in 6, 7 hectares. So you wouldn't need the 10 hectares of margins. Nitrogen fixing crops again are 1 to 1. Catch crop is 0.3. Green cover is also 0.3. It's important to note that any green cover for manures that you're using in an agri-environmental don't apply here. That doesn't cover you for your EFA. That's different altogether. Any agroforestry is 1. You've got 2 different hedgerow choices. So you have hedgerow 100 and hedgerow 50. So depending on which one applies to you, it could be 10 meters squared or 5 meters squared. So it's the length in meters. Low input grass, so any permanent grassland which is not rough grazing, is 0.2. Your herby or leguminous rich pastures on arable land, it has to be on arable land, is 1.5. Agroforestry is 2, and unharvested crop is 1.5. So it really does depend on what you need. So, if you were to undersow your spring barley with grass as a catch crop, so for every 10 hectares of undersown grass, that's 3 hectares towards your EFA requirement. So there's ways and means to make sure that it's integrated into um, your management system. But you can work some of these things together, and there are options to show you for what's going on the Rural Payments website. But there is changes. They've done away with the two crop rule. They've done away with a few bits and pieces that we need to have a look at. So let's have a quick overview of what's changed. So the greening rules now. Um, so you're protecting permanent grassland. 5% of your arable goes into. Okay, if you have hedgerows on your farm, you need to remember that you have to keep a 2 meter buffer strip from the centre of the line of the hedge and from the top of the bank of surface water. So that's not included in your enhanced greening practices. And it's also an area that you can't apply pesticides to. You can spot apply if you need to for injurious weeds, but you need written consent from Rural Payments. And you need to be aware of the SEPA requirement for putting pesticides in your water. And the geek number 7, you must not apply fertilizer or pesticides within 2 meters of the central line of a hedge unless it's for establishing a new hedge. Um, you can apply pesticides for injurious weeds. Again, you need written consent for that. But all your cross compliance guidance is online. So there is changes to the greening guidance. It won't apply to the majority of our customers or people that follow us. If you would like more information, you can go online to Rural Payments and look for the Greening 2026 guidance. It is something that we'll be speaking about at SAF time, which is coming closer and closer. But if you're worried about whether your arable land is too much or too little, give us a shout and we can have a look and do a quick calculation for you and see what you need to do. But that's the long and the short of what's needed for your greening guidance. So tomorrow, I'm hoping to do another video for you on agri-environmentals and how that can assist your farm and look at some case studies that we've done with some of our clients. Right, thank you very much for listening, and I will speak to you again soon.